Whacking it off to my mom. Whacking it off to my mom.
Young Man's Fancy might be the codifier of a horror story with a fascinating premise, but a massively lackluster finale. I don't hate this episode, on the contrary, I sincerely love the beginning and rising action of this, since this is the Twilight Zone at its most haunted house horror. But tragically, it gets popped by a bad ending and uncertainty. We follow a recently newlywed couple named Mr. and Mrs. Alex Walker and Virginia Lane Walker, who return to Alex's late mother's house to sell it off after she passed away. The deceased Mama Walker is implied to have been a smothering parent towards Alex, dominating most of his life, making him a mama's boy, and resented his girlfriend Virginia for most of their romance, as according to Virginia, Alex's mom hated any woman who got between her and her boy. That's right, ladies and germs, it's the good old-fashioned rivalry between the lover versus parent-in-law, but set in the Twilight Zone. Phyllis Thaxter portrays Virginia Lane Walker, and while she does a fairly great job at portraying the bewildered perfectionist wife, most of my problems with her stem from how she's written. Virginia desperately wants to sell off Alex's mother's old house, since it serves as a bad reminder to her of how controlling she was, since there was a ton of animosity between them regarding Alex. However, Alex wants to hold on to his mom's pad just a little longer, due to the sentimental value he holds for it. And we start to understand that his mother has only recently died, where he's struggling over how he feels over it. But in true spooky shenanigans, weird things start to occur the longer they hang around the abandoned house. Every time they try getting rid of any old junk, it magically reappears. Items that were never present before pop up out of nowhere. There's a constant reminder of the dead mother's presence around every corner, and soon the house itself begins to slowly transform into an entirely retro building. I love the unsettling atmosphere behind this episode, because a lot of it reminds me of the Bates house from Psycho, and even a haunted house story from The Haunting Hour. The horror here is subtle, since the building is slowly reshaping around our couple's stay and arguments over their decision making. Making it even creepier is that there's this constant looming fear as if the long dead mother's spirit is still watching over them. There's always a portrait of her glaring into your soul, or a knee-jerk reaction from either Virginia getting irritated at seeing her face, or Alex angsting over her and her old belongings. I do like how unique and relatable these characters feel, as they do seem genuine, and not just act as horror movie victims waiting to die. However, I do have major criticisms. Namely with the direction the episode takes with these people. I'm kind of indifferent towards Virginia, because the episode doesn't know if she's meant to be the morally tough but fair hero trying to save her hubby, or just as bad and toxic towards Alex as her mother-in-law was. She comes across as a domineering control freak shrew towards Alex, telling him what to do, making choices for him, and honestly acting no better than his mom did. Heck, the fact that we never actually see his mom's alleged controlling behavior only makes Virginia out as an unreliable narrator who could be lying. I sincerely thought the episode was suggesting that Alex unknowingly traded up his toxic relationship with his controlling mother to a toxic simp marriage with his new girlfriend. It really feels that way. I just don't like her as much as the episode wants us to, because she's pretty hypocritical and nasty herself. The episode is truly carried by the ominous magic at play, as it does make even the viewer feel unsafe in the house, nuts once they tease how it might be the ghost of Mama Walker. When the couple try signing over the home to a realtor, Alex relents and decides to keep it, upsetting his wife who wants to get away from the past. More scary things happen until Virginia at last confronts the ghost of Mama Walker, where we get to our twist ending. Finally on screen, Mama Walker reveals that none of this is her doing. All of the magic, the house changing itself, and her spirit are only here because of Alex. Alex's desperate desire to bring his childhood and his late mother back was strong enough to become his new reality. The mother's ghost is only here because her son wanted her to come back. Alex emerges in dramatic style to finally embrace his dead mom again, transforming into a child himself, symbolically representing how Mr. Walker never grew up and could not let go of his ideal vision of his mother. And the story actually concludes with Kid Alex going off with his ghost mom and ditching his wife, telling her that they don't need her ruining their fun.
Go away, lady. We don't need you anymore.
Wow, I got burned by a 5th grader. I think I've hit a new low.
And here's where my disappointment enters. I'm not quite sure how to interpret this ending. Rod Serling's narration pops up and honestly sends mixed messages. The episode flat out implies that Virginia deserves this, and her husband regressing into a kid to run off and play make-believe with Ghost Mom is a happy ending. Yeah, the episode treats it like the bitch got what she deserves, and this happened because she wasn't a good enough wife for him. However, Rod Serling also informs us that she retreated, and Alex refused to grow up, making it seem like a bad ending too, because now Mr. Walker never grows up and is clinging to a hopeless fantasy. Well, which is it? Are we supposed to be happy Alex dumps his toxic wife to reunite with the only woman who ever loved him? Or deeply disturbed that he's regressed into a man-child, refusing to be an adult?
Marge, I'm confused. Is this a happy ending or a sad ending?
It's an ending, that's enough.
I'm not even sure how I feel about this ending, since it can go a number of different ways. But no matter how you spin it, it's still ultimately a bad finale because Alex ditches one toxic relationship for another toxic relationship, and is not well off by the end. If there was a lesson mixed in this, I'm not sure what it was, nor who was supposed to learn it. Alex? Virginia? Us? Well, I'm certain Alex reliving a clean slate with his mother's ghost will allow him to finally grow up into a better, stable man. I'm upset because there's so much great potential in this, so much unsettling nightmare fuel, and two very compelling characters, but it all leads to a botched ending that's so ambiguous you're left confused and stumped by what just happened. I simply don't get it, and judging by reviews from others online, a ton of other people don't either. The final payoff is lame, unclear, and unsatisfying. I was so close to liking it, as it feels like a classic haunted house story with several great scares and an unnerving tone felt all throughout the trip, but what it concludes on is too vague to understand or even feel for. Not awful, yet like Alex, you wish it chose where it stood. I grant this house party a silver skull. There's no harm in checking it out, but overall, it's a forgettable visit. Just an okay horror pit stop before moving along to the next one.
Can we go to the park and then to the zoo and have 2 ice cream cones? Oh boy.
The Twilight Zone.